Hi there, this is David Bennett Cohen with John, and you're listening to Retrospectives on 3SER KC Radio.
You're recognised as both a guitarist and a keyboardist. What was your first instrument of choice when you were growing up?
Well, my first instrument was piano. I started piano when I was 7, but my first instrument of choice was the guitar. I studied piano for about 7 years, and I kind of hated it. And then when I discovered the guitar, I was about 13, and I may have taken piano lessons for another few times after that, but the guitar was like a love affair for me. My high school, I'd get home from high school around 3:30. I'd go up to my room and I'd play my guitar for 6 hours. I would do 15 minutes of homework and then go to sleep. And somewhere in there, I know I ate dinner. But it was that was my high school.
Was there any time when you were faced with the dilemma of having to choose between the two? Were you torn between the two instruments at any time?
Not really. When I started playing with Joe, the reason I started playing keyboards with Joe, when I went to California in 1965, I had only been playing guitar for years and years, and I started playing piano again when I heard Mead Lux Lewis on TV. That was I guess I was about 16 or 17, and I loved that music, and so I would learn it. But all my friends were guitar players, and I used to hang out I was part of the Washington Square folk music scene in New York, and that was primarily guitar, and I was playing banjo and mandolin and a bunch of other stringed instruments, but my main instrument then was the guitar. When I went to California, it was I was actually a folkie, and I had no use for any rock and roll at all, and so I didn't really listen to much of it, and I didn't really play much of it, and I wasn't part of that scene because the Washington Square scene was so exciting. Then in 1965, just before I left to California, a girlfriend of mine took me to see the two Beatles movies. Actually, she took me kicking and screaming to see them because I wasn't interested in rock and roll. But it was a real scene at the theater. It was in Greenwich Village, and it was like this theater. It was like it didn't have a balcony. It was just like one room. It was a small theater, and we were in the back, and people were passing around wine and roast chicken and joints and all kinds of stuff. It was a real party. I saw Hard Day's Night Help and Hard Day's Night Again. I would have stayed longer, except the theater closed. So I said at that point, it was when I decided that I was going to become a rock and roller. I was playing in various bands out there, and there was an old beat-up piano in this club that we used to hang out at called the Jabberwock. And every now and then I'd sit down and I'd play some boogie woogie, or I'd play St. Louis blues, and Barry Melton really liked the way I played the piano. So when Joe was looking for, Joe wanted a organ sound in his band, and Barry said, well, David could play piano, play organ. Of course, I never played organ before, but I faked it, and eventually I learned how to do it. So, and with Joe, it was actually pretty easy because he let me do whatever I wanted to. There were certain things that he wanted keyboards on, but the guitar stuff was fun too. So it was kind of the best of both worlds. So, in answer to your question, not really. Well, it was a long way of answering the question.
Yeah. So that distinctive organ sound that you were known for with your days in the Fish, it wasn't really pre-planned at all. It pretty much all just fell into place.
Well, yeah, what happened was I didn't know what to do with the organ because I never really played one. So I stole my guitar licks and I put them on the organ.
Okay.
And I would get these reviews about what a unique sound. And I didn't know what I was doing at all.
As far as the piano is concerned, who are some of the players that really inspired you there?
Okay, there was Professor Longhair at the top of the list.
Mm-hmm.
Otis Spann, Meadlux Lewis, the boogie woogie piano players, Meadlux Lewis, Albert Ammons, and Pete Johnson. They had that one record that I think everybody got. All my friends who played piano. Memphis Slim, Champion Jack Dupree, Jimmy Yancey. The list is endless. Roosevelt Sykes, Sunnyland Slim. I mean, the list is so long. It's Amos Milburn. Just on and on and on.
Yeah. Just the same though, despite all those influences, were you always particularly wary of not trying to imitate too much to develop your own style?
No, I wasn't, because I would try to imitate them exactly, but I could never get it right. So I developed my own style by accident. I think that's what all of us did.
Yeah.
Because we were trying to get it what we called right, but it wasn't right. Never was. And those people never did it that way, the same way twice anyway.
So how did you find your way into Country Joe and the Fish to begin with?
Well, we were all sort of hanging around this club called the Jabberwock in Berkeley. A bunch of different musicians, and Country Joe and the Fish was they had been a band, but not really a band. When they decided to go electric, we just sort of fell into place. We were the musicians who were there. We were all friends by then. We all knew each other.
Yeah. What would you say, what lasting impression did that whole West Coast scene of the late 60s leave on you?
On me?
Yeah.
Lasting impression is... Well, I think that the San Francisco bands of the 60s were really innovative. I think the Grateful Dead, the Jefferson Airplane, Quicksilver Messenger Service, Country Joe and the Fish, Big Brother and the Holding Company, we were doing something that had never been done before. Basically, we were taking folk music and turning it into rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I know. That's when first time I saw the Grateful Dead, I was playing with a band called Blackbird and Snow, and we rehearsed a lot. And after one rehearsal, I remember Jeff Blackburn saying, "Oh, let's go see the Airplane." I had no idea what he was talking about. I thought we were going to the airport. So we got into a car, drove for a while, and we ended up in this beautiful house across the street from Golden Gate Park. And I walked in, and I see these hippies there with all these gorgeous guitars, and that's where I became friendly with Yorma and Jack and all those people and Marty, and so we played for a while, and then we left. And then another time after rehearsal, Jeff said, "Let's go see the Grateful Dead." Well, I knew who they were, so we walked up to campus, UC Berkeley campus, where they were playing at the student union there. And when I first heard Jerry play, I was just mesmerized. I never heard anybody play the guitar like that. So afterwards, I went up and I introduced myself, and we became friends, and we went outside and we talked for a while, and that's when we became friends. And then their next set, they went in and they started playing, and I think I have a call coming in, but I'll ignore it.
Okay.
It's okay. So they pulled the plug on the Grateful Dead.
Wow.
Yeah. So anyway, when Country Joe and the Fish played our first gig, it was on campus, and they didn't have a keyboard for me yet, so I was playing guitar. they were in the process of getting me one, but I was playing guitar, and at that first gig, it was outdoor, and both Yorma, who was calling himself Jerry at the time, and Jerry Garcia, they both showed up at the gig. It was great. I was so happy that they were there. Anyway, so that's but a lasting impression. I think the bands made. I think we made an impact.
Yeah.
I think we had a very definite influence on society.
Oh, there's no doubting that. Now,
I'm not so sure it was a positive influence. I mean, you look on Wall Street and you see these Wall Street brokers with long hair, and you think, "Wow, we won," but it's not that easy. We thought we thought it was all about hair, and in those days it was.
It was, yeah. Now, you played at Monterey Pop. Did the significance?
Yes, I played at Monterey Pop, and I left the band before Woodstock.
Oh, you weren't in the lineup then?
No, I wasn't in Woodstock.
Right. As far as Monterey Pop goes, did the significance of that event sink in with you at the time? Did you feel that it would be an event that people would still be talking about even now, decades later?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I realized that they were making a movie of it, but I had no idea that the movie was going to have much of an impact. But I think that it was the first rock festival. When I was a kid, I went to a few of the rock and roll shows in New York at the Brooklyn Paramount and stuff, the Alan Freed shows. But that was different. This was like a real festival, and it was just a beautiful experience. It was probably, of all the gigs I've ever played, and I've played a lot, it's the best one I ever played.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, what was the catalyst to you leaving the Fish?
Oh, let me go back to Monterey for a second.
Yeah, sure.
The reason that Monterey Pop was such a great gig was because it was a musician's gig. It was set up so that, of course, the audience was they took first priority, but the musicians were treated wonderfully. We had a nice backstage. They fed us. It was it was handled beautifully. You know, it was put on by musicians. The Bill Graham events also were for musicians, but that first Monterey Pop really set the stage, and I don't think any of the festivals have measured up to it. Woodstock. Of course, I wasn't at Woodstock, but you know, I saw the movie.
Yeah.
And I've heard stories, and I personally think that that Woodstock was a disaster, major disaster, and was only saved by the movie.
The movie itself, yeah.
Yeah. Because if the movie hadn't happened, it would just be and also with Monterey, I think that the movies would the movie sort of made it historical event. Like it what's the word? It cataloged it.
Yeah.
Archived it. Anyway, why did I leave Country Joe and the Fish? There were many reasons. Some personal, and some professional. I personally felt that the band was no longer playing what I really thought was their most interesting music. We weren't doing songs like Grace or Bass Strings. We were doing songs like Rock and Soul Music, which was a parody anyway, and then we were self-parodying it, and it turned into in the middle of the song, which turned out to be like an endless jam. In the middle of the song, we did this. We mimed a baseball game. It was like the stupidest thing I ever did, but that would have been okay had the music been okay.
Yeah.
but it was just falling apart. It was formula for us, and I thought it was going nowhere. Plus, Joe wasn't writing anymore. The contract that we signed had Joe doing, I think, 12 albums in 3 years, which is almost impossible.
Yeah,
right? To do like 4 really great albums a year. And so he just was writing, and a lot of the stuff wasn't any good anymore. It wasn't as inspired. Although he has written some great stuff since then. But it was I was not enjoying being in the band. And then, of course, I did have these personal problems with the band. Probably shouldn't talk about it.
Fair enough.
I can tell you if you'd like it, if it's like off the record.
Sure.
I had a baby that died, and they were very insensitive to that, and I couldn't take it anymore.
To more happier times, you've been involved in a reunion with the Fish in recent times, haven't you?
Oh yeah. This last year, 2004, we actually got back together and we did a bunch of gigs, and it was very successful. The tours that we did, it's hard to say it was a tour. The only really tour that we had was the one in L.A. to Seattle, and it was all driving.
Wow.
And then we did another tour. I think the second tour was in England, and that was 2 weeks. Also, was a lot of driving. It was one of those. It was a very intense tour. It was like 13 dates in 15 days. It was drive, play, sleep. But it was England. It was fun.
Yeah.
And then we did a tour again in California. We did one in New York. And I think we did like five different tours of about 2 or 3 weeks each.
How extensive was the rehearsal in the lead up to that? Were you tentative at all about whether you'd be able to recreate what you once had?
Well, everybody was a little bit nervous about it, and we had the first gig was down in a place called Moore Park, which was just outside of Los Angeles, and it was a theater, and Joe knew the owner, and so he let us rehearse there for 3 days. And so the rehearsals were very intense, but they were useless because they were intense not because we got a lot of work done. They were intense because we didn't get any work done. And I was, after our first, then we played on Friday night, and I said to myself, I don't know if this is going to work. But then the second night was better. And then the rehearsals were impossible. Joe hasn't been in a band in many years, and he's never been in a band that was this good. And he also he's never been anybody else's band, so he doesn't know the various. He only knows his own dynamics. He doesn't know the dynamics of what bands are and what rehearsals are like. It was insane. It was just insane. And so, but then we got through that weekend, and then the next gig we played was a TV show, and that was each gig got about twice as good as the one before. So I started to feel much better about it. And by the second weekend that we played like we played 2 dates in Moore Park, then we played the show, then we did like 3 dates in a row up in the Bay Area, or 4 dates, and by that time the band was sounding great. Everybody's been playing wonderfully. I was very impressed with, particularly with the drummer, with Chickens playing.
Were you wary at all of not wanting to be seen as just an exercise in nostalgia?
Oh,
did that come into play at all?
I wasn't concerned about that.
Huh?
I wasn't concerned about that. For Joe, it's probably nostalgia. He's been playing that stuff for 30 years.
Yeah.
35 years, but we haven't played it in 35 years, so it was fresh for us. And the music, Joe's stuff, we're doing all the old stuff. We're doing Section 43, we're doing Grace, we're doing bass strings, we're doing all the beautiful stuff. and we do Masked Marauder. We just, we got into all the old material, and that old material was what really turned me on to Country Joe and the Fish. It was such beautiful music, so it was. It's been fresh for all of us. So it's not really nostalgia. I don't think of it as nostalgia at all.
Fantastic. Any plans to continue it on in the new year?
Oh yeah, I just got an email from Bruce. He's been doing the booking in California, and it looks like we're going to be doing April out there.
Fantastic.
And then we're also we'll be playing in England in August, and we'd love to play in Australia.
Oh, fantastic! We'd love to see you.
Yeah, we have no connections. I don't have any connections. None of us, I don't think, have any connections there.
No, Joe himself hasn't been down here for quite a while.
Yeah. So if you know any names that I could get in touch with.
Yeah, sure. I'll send you some. I'll do that.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have my email, right?
Yep, I have. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how we did this. That's right. Yeah, just send me an email.
Okay.
All right. You have other questions?
Yeah, sure. Besides your work with Country Joe and the Fish, who are some of the other performers that you've worked with that you've struck a special chord with?
Well, I played with the Blues Project.
Of course.
That was with Danny Kalb and Roy Blumenfeld, and not the original bass player, but the bass player named Don Kretmar, who was a bass player with C-Train. And that was in the 70s. In New York, I played with Melvin Van Peebles, who I became a very good friend of mine. I played with. When I went back to California. I played with the Luke Tucker Blues Band. I played with Elvin Bishop. I played with just lots and lots of people. It's all on my website.
Yeah.
I have to look at my website to see.
You did some work on Broadway too, didn't you?
What's that?
You did some work on Broadway as well, didn't you?
I played in Rent.
Uh-huh.
I played in Rent, the Broadway show Rent. I was on Broadway for a year, and then I toured with the show for a few weeks.
Fantastic. How does that compare, touring in that type of production, compared to being in a band situation where you can vary your set from night to night? Something I guess you don't have the luxury of being able to do in a stage production. Can that be frustrating at times?
Stage production is basically the same every night. Although with Rent there was a lot of room within the various. There was a certain amount of room we could improvise in. Rent. I wasn't with the show long enough really to get bored with the music. The music was fabulous. And I was playing guitars and keyboards. I was playing organ, synthesizer, electric, and acoustic guitar, and it was like a juggling act back there. So I didn't really have a chance to be bored.
Yeah.
It was. I remember there was one song transition from one song into the next where I went from keyboards into guitar, and it was like the next beat I had to switch. I had to have the acoustic guitar on. It was quite the thing. There was like I said, a lot of juggling back there.
Yeah.
Rent was fun to play. It was the only Broadway show I've ever done. Although I've done shows before. I was in a theater company. I was the musical director of a theater company called Earthlight Theater, which actually was at Woodstock.
Okay.
Yeah, they were the very, very first act that went on before Richie Havens. They were naked. They took their clothes off and they did theater. So it was I was with them for a while.
Yeah. You've done something else you've been involved with is in instructional videos.
Right. I just finished a new DVD. For Homespun on actually redoing my original videos.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Happy Traum and I have been friends since, I guess, 1956. His brother Artie and I, that was my first band. It was with Artie Traum. It was called the Lane County Bachelors. It was a folk group. And it was with Artie and a banjo player named Eric Nagler. actually there's this really hip Yahoo group called NYGBOT. It's in New York bluegrass and old-timey music, and it's all the old people. So I'm able to contact all these people, Artie and Eric Nagler and Winnie Winston and all these old friends of mine.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, so I played. There's a new photograph on my website. I think it's up. I think it's up on my website now of me playing with Jimi Hendrix and Johnny Winter.
I must look out for that.
So yeah, so I've done that. I knew Jimi Hendrix pretty well, fairly well, and it was over the years I played with him in various situations where we just sit around dressing rooms and play. Yeah, the photograph is up on my website now.
Oh, terrific. I'll have a look for that. Getting back to the instructional videos, is that a comfortable situation for you, sitting in front of a camera and explaining your craft?
Oh yeah, I'm very articulate when I do that. I don't stumble so much. I'm not one of those great debaters. But when the videos have been a pleasure to do. Of course, Happy Trams is very easy to work with. He's a real prince, and that company is. I wish all music companies were like that. I've never had to call them for a royalty check, a late check. They're always. They come like clockwork. It's really wonderful to work with them. And I really know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about music.
I guess when you were growing up and learning about music yourself, would you have liked to have had a facility like that available to you? You know, videos featuring some of your musical heroes explaining their craft. Yeah,
when I was learning music, there was nobody. There was nobody to teach that stuff. There was nobody that was teaching boogie woogie piano. And there was nobody that was teaching finger-picking guitar that I could learn from. I took one guitar lesson, and I ended up showing him how to do finger-picking, showing him what I wanted to learn. But then I took another lesson in 1965 in Los Angeles, and it will forever remain in my memory. I took a lesson with Clarence White.
Oh, yeah.
He was just a fabulous guitar player.
He was.
Just the best, absolutely the best. So it was that was very exciting for me, and that's when I wanted to learn some flat picking stuff, and so I learned it from him.
You still give private lessons yourself, don't you?
Yes, I do. That's my day job, because I've never seen the music scene quite so bad.
Really?
Yeah, well, I think it's because of the war. I think in a war economy, the arts don't flourish.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it has to be peaceful in order for culture to really develop.
It's 14 minutes to midnight. We'll wrap it up, taking the final portion of our interview with David Bennett Cohen right after this.
Join me, Russell Hanby, for breakfast every Thursday morning at 7 o'clock. I'll be playing those great classics we grew up with. I'll also pick out some quirky news stories to make you smile. And in the second hour, I'll be featuring great tracks of the 50s and 60s, when the crooners and swooners of the 40s met the rock and rollers of the 50s and 60s. That's Thursday breakfast, 7 to 9 a.m, only here on KC Radio 97.7 FM.
Do you find that giving those lessons keeps your skills intact and keep you sharp?
Well, yeah, it does. It helps me explain what I'm doing, but more than anything else, I play 2-3 hours every day. So I'm always practicing. I'm always playing.
Yeah.
Because so many times I've gotten last-minute gigs, and if I haven't practiced, and then it really shows. Arthur Rubinstein said, "If I don't practice for one day, I know. I don't practice for 2 days, the critics know. And if I don't practice for 3 days, everybody knows.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Away from the Fish reunion, what else are you doing as far as live performance goes?
Well, I played with Bobby Kyle Blues Band for 3 years. I played with the Bill Perry Blues Band for 3 years. I'm on 2 of Bill's records, CDs, and I do a lot of local gigs in New York, and I teach, and I waiting for the phone call. It's just it's basically what it is. I try to put my name out there, but the best thing I do is I go do jam sessions.
Yeah.
In the city. There's a lot of them around the city, and there's a fellow named John Paris. Do you know who he is?
No, it doesn't ring a bell.
John Paris is one of the reasons that I believe that there's no justice in the music business. He's fabulous. It's Jon if you want to write him, but he's a wonderful guitar player and singer, and he plays harmonica. And he played 11 years with Johnny Winters as a bass player.
Okay.
So he's great. He runs a jam session at BB King's, and I go every Monday, and I go there periodically, maybe once a month. And sometimes if he knows I'm coming, they'll set up a piano, but I usually just bring my guitar.
Tremendous. Yeah, and just to finish up, David, any regrets? Anything, if you could, that you would go back and change?
Oh, I wouldn't have gotten married 3 times. No, I don't really have any regrets. I don't have any regrets. I practice Buddhism. I practice Nichiren Buddhism. I practice with the organization called the Soka Gakkai International, the SGI, and we chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. And one of the things that we strive for is a life of no regrets.
Okay.
So even if we're sorry that we did something, there's always something to be learned from it.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's only not to try and make the same mistake again.
Yeah.
So I think that regrets are, you end up looking back, looking at the past, and I'm more concerned with the present and the future.
That's a good attitude too.
It's the best. It's great, since I've been practicing this Buddhism for 20 years. Well, it'll be 20 years in March. And my wife's been practicing for 30 years, and it's the best thing I've ever done, and I haven't lived a sheltered life. But it just enhances my life, every aspect of it. And my music has gotten so much better over the last 20 years, so much more heartfelt, and so much. One guidance that I got from one of my leaders was to this is when I was playing. I got a gig with Mick Taylor, and so I went and spoke to one of my leaders about it. Told him about it, and just a report. And she said, "It doesn't matter who you play." And this is an old, elderly Japanese woman. She may never even have heard of the Rolling Stones, but she said, "It doesn't matter who I'm playing with. What's important is that my music touch people's lives." And it was such an interesting way of looking at music, because how many times do musicians, they play just really, we play for ourselves.
Yeah.
But this was different. I was making an effort to play for others. And it opened up a whole new aspect of my music.
Fantastic.
I play blues, but people tell me, "Oh, I didn't know blues was so much fun. I didn't know blues was so joyful." And it's because of that attitude.
Yeah. David, thanks so much for your time. It's been a treat to catch up with you.
Well, thank you very much.